Hello and welcome back to the Decaf Bubble podcast with me, Abby. Today we are looking at part 2 of the Life Reset series. Part 1, we looked at all of the practical elements of doing a life reset. So like food, sleep, routines, rituals, all of that good stuff. So today we are doing a bit of a reflective journaling session and a bit of planning and kind of manifesting for the next season. I recently saw on Gala Darling's Instagram this word planifesting, and that's the first time I heard that word, but I was like, oh, I love that so much, because there's something really cool about combining how you plan your life and like setting goals and that kind of like practical side with the magical manifesting law of attraction side. Combining the two is just so potent, because sometimes it just feels like if you just kind of daydream and like hope for something, like yes, it can happen in magical ways, of course, like the universe can do anything, God can do anything, but if you have a plan, if you put in action, like it's just so much more effective when it comes to things like business and your career and like all of that. So yeah, planifesting is going to be totally incorporated into my vocabulary. So yeah, a little chat about the seasons before we begin. So one of the structures that I put on my life to kind of give myself structure is, rather than doing quarters of the year, I know in America they do like Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 for the year. I prefer to divide the year into quarters, but to do it seasonally. So it's kind of a little bit more like terms, how we have terms in the UK, but I do it very specifically just to the seasons. So the way I organize it, and this, like, I know seasons are much more fluid than this, and they're not like as clear cut, but for me it just really helps my mind to do it in this way. So the first season would be December to February. So December, January, February is winter season, and then March, April, May is spring. March, April, May is spring. June, July, August is summer, and September, October, November is autumn. And I just love doing that structure. I often structure my like courses around that. Like Cocoon was really structured with the seasons. I did like the first ever round I did was winter, and then we did the spring round, then the summer round, then the autumn round. And I just, there's something about doing that which just feels so much more like organic and grounded and connected to the seasons. And I find myself so resourced by the earth's energy when I do it that way, because I can really like align the plans for that term or that season with the season that we're in, you know, like it has its own flavor, it has its own energy, it has its own astrology, like everything just feels so nice doing it that way. So what we're doing right now is transitioning from the summer term to the autumn term. The end of August to the 1st of September is, you know, that's the transition. And I also recently learned from one of my teachers who I've mentioned before, Pilar Lesko. She was talking about how in traditional Chinese medicine, like the way that they organize the years according to the seasons according to the elements, they actually have 5 elements. And so the season that we're currently in is actually a 5th season, and it's not just summer to autumn, but it's this middle season between summer and autumn that is actually associated with the element of earth. And so summer is obviously fire, and then autumn is metal, but the season that we're in now is called late summer, and it's like this beautiful kind of harvest time, this transition time, but it's like an incredibly abundant season because we're in the earth element right now. For the only time for the whole year, we're in the earth element. And so that is just so grounding. So I know a lot of people, myself included, love this season. Like, we love this back to school season, like, feeling. And that is another reason for it, because we're in the earth element. And especially, if you're an earth sign like me, I'm a Taurus. I'm like a what even is the word for 5 times, like a quintuple? I'm like a 5 times Taurus. I have 5 Taurus placements, so I'm super duper Taurus. And I just love the earth element, and I feel right at home in this time. So yeah, that's my little talk on the seasons. So yeah, I encourage you to, even if you don't want to organize your year in that way, just give yourself the chance to process seasons in your life, periods in your life, and like almost distill the juice from them, and then plan ahead for the next season. I think when we try and do this like once a year, it's just like too vast. Like, I love all the New Year stuff, but it's really nice to do these things like throughout the year. Looking back, reflecting, and then looking forward and planning and planifesting. So that's what we're about to do. So grab a journal. I'm going to give you 4 journal prompts for the first part, which is reflection. And I use these particular journal prompts a lot. Like, I will often do this same reflective process at the end of a month. I definitely do this at the end of the year. So yeah, let me just have a look at these. So I'm just going to give you the 4 journal prompts. Maybe pause the podcast and go through each of these questions. They're more like lists, really. So you're making 4 lists. So the first list you're going to make is a list of significant events. This is anything that happened over this period of time, over this summer season, that was significant to you. It doesn't even have to be significant to anyone else, but significant things. That can be like events that you went to, things that you did, things that happened, challenges, penny drop moments, just like whatever feels significant. And in order to remember this, you can go back through your photos, you can go back through your calendar, your notes, whatever, your journal. Just kind of, make a list of things that are significant. The second list is a list of successes and wins. It's super important, in my opinion, to go back and reflect on the things that you've achieved and to actually celebrate yourself. Because when we don't go back and celebrate ourselves, it's like we don't really process or digest how far we've come and like what we're really doing. Like, you might not feel like you're making enough progress. Maybe you have a sense of being behind, or you feel like self-critical in some respect in regards to like achievements in life. So it's really important to train yourself to celebrate the wins that you are having and the ways that you are showing up and the things that you are successful at. It's like making headlines, like making statistics. It's like, I don't know, like I feel like corporate people do this. I don't know, I've never had like a corporate job really, but I know they do these like reviews where they'll be like, we made $3 million in revenue, and we hired 50 new employees, and we delivered, whatever else, like 50, we delivered to 20 clients. Whatever it is, like, I want you to make those statistics and highlights for yourself and they don't have to be like fancy, shiny things about how much money you made, although that can be a big achievement. Like, I made this amount of money. Even if you feel like it's not enough, it's still like money that you made. Like, celebrate that, celebrate yourself. It doesn't have to be impressive to anyone else. Just whatever you did, celebrate yourself for it, whatever the successes were, whatever the wins were. And sometimes that's going to be something really personal, like, you know, I got through my family holiday without any fights. Like, that's a massive success, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so that is your successes and wins list. The third list you're going to make is a list of highlights. So this is why we do successes and wins first, because, you know, with successes, it's like you might have hated some of those things. You know, you might have like hated showing up for work, but it's still a success that you did it. However, it might not be your highlight, and that's okay. So make a list of highlights. Make a list of things that like actually evoke a feeling of joy and pleasure when you think about them. So it might be like a totally different list from your successes, or it might be that there's some crossover. You know, some of your successes might have been super fulfilling and made you super happy, and they'll be on your highlights list as well. But they're two separate lists with crossover. So highlights, like for me, sometimes my highlights will be like the TV show that I watched just because it was so good, and like my like evening routine of eating dark chocolate, and like just the little things, you know, like the small pleasures of life. And then sometimes there'll be some bigger things on there, like moments like the first bubble in-person social was a big highlight. We had a lovely picnic and I met some bubble members in person for the first time, and that was such a highlight. But that was also a success and a win, so I put that on both lists. And finally, we have the fourth list, which is novelty and learning. So this is a list of things that you learned. As we get older, you know, the longer it's been since we were at school, the more we need to keep that learning muscle strong and the novelty muscle strong. There's some like statistic about how, like, I don't know, your brain stops growing or whatever, but I think they've proven that the only reason your brain stops growing at a certain age statistically is because that's the age where you stop doing new things. And so if you carry on doing new things, like going to new places, trying new food, learning a new skill, like your brain is going to carry on growing. And so that's really important. So this reflection is kind of about like keeping track of that. Like, did you learn anything over the last few months? Did you take any courses? Did you have any like personal development progress? Did you learn a new physical skill? I think that's so important. Like, it's so good for us to, as we learn, you know, mental things, like to learn physical things too. So like, you know, for me, like when I learned to drive, I put that on. When I'll put like all the courses that I've studied just to kind of keep track of like what I've been learning. And then you can also add to this list if you want. You can add like the challenges. But I kind of prefer to put the challenges that I experienced from a season on the successes list, because it feels really good to be like, I overcame this challenge. Or even if I felt like I didn't overcome it, like I tried my best, you know, and I still put that as a success. But if you want, you can put it in the novelty and learning section and just talk about like, oh yeah, this was really challenging, that was really challenging. Yeah. So those are the 4 lists. I suggest that you now pause the podcast and go through and make those lists. Take as long as you want, and then press play when you're done. Okay, we're just going to pause there for one moment because I've mentioned the Bubble membership, and you might be wondering what exactly the Bubble membership is. So let me tell you. The Bubble is a community. It's an online membership community run by me, Abby, and it's designed for artists, for creatives, entrepreneurs, anybody who is walking a creative path. And so one of the things that I have really valued over the years as an artist is community, and having high quality creative community where not only am I learning and taking in and being inspired by the artists around me, but I'm also being seen and having my work and my work in progress, seen, known, appreciated, and cheered on. And it's the times when I've had community like that I have really quantum leapt as a creative. And I wanted to create a community that would provide that for all kinds of artists. And I think it's extra potent when artists of different backgrounds create community together, because when you're only in a community of artists who share your same craft or your same industry, sometimes we can fall into a little bit of like self-comparison or just being in an echo chamber and not quite feeling connected to the wider picture of creativity. And so instead of the thing that us having in common being anything to do with what we create, the thing that we have in common in the Bubble is that we're all on this path of creation. We're all exploring what is creativity together. We have some amazing artists from all kinds of different backgrounds inside the Bubble. And so what do you get when you join the Bubble? So the first thing, one of the most important things, is you have a space to share your work in progress. 2 or 3 times a month, we meet up on Zoom and we have a work in progress circle. And so in a work in progress circle, every single person who attends has at least 5 minutes to share whatever they're working on. So if you're writing a novel, you can share a few pages. If you're applying for drama school, you can practice your monologue in front of a warm, appreciative audience. If you have a business idea, you can talk through your ideas and have people ask you questions and ultimately just encourage you, because that is always the vibe inside Work in Progress Circle. It's just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, you have to carry on. But also, you can ask for really specific feedback if that's helpful to your process. And I can't tell you how powerful and empowering and transformative having this space really is for creativity. I often share something I'm working on in Work in Progress Circle, and I truly could not live without it at this point. Like, having somewhere to just show up and be like, oh, I've been like kind of writing this thing, like I'm not really sure what it is, and hearing myself read it out loud and feeling people being like, they value this thing and it makes me want to carry on. That's the feeling you always leave with. So we have 2 or 3 of those per month. And then we also have 3 classes or workshops. So if you're kind of craving a bit of like back to school structure, come and try out the Bubble. We also have a business class every month, which is new, and that's a class where we just talk about like how to make money from your art and all of that practical stuff. And then we do a workshop every month as well called the Inner Workshop. So in Inner Workshop, we look at the kind of inner work, the esoteric side of being an artist, like what it really takes of us, how we can, connect with our truest heart's desires as creatives, how we can like manifest that, and also how we can move through the blocks. So whatever is blocking you creatively, you can bring that to the Inner Workshop. I will coach you through it. We'll do exercises to kind of like move through. And so ultimately the Bubble is providing you with quite a 360 kind of holistic support for whatever it is that you're creating. And I cannot stress enough that artists of any background, creatives, entrepreneurs of any background are so, so welcome, because to be honest, the more diversity of creative forms in the space, the better. So if you're curious about the bubble and you feel like joining a community of creatives could be exactly what you're needing right now, I have 2 offers for you. The first is that I am running a free work in progress circle on Monday the 29th. That is at 6 p.m. BST, and anyone can come. It's just a chance to kind of see what the work in progress circle is like. You can come along and just soak in the vibes and just watch, and be like a supporter, a contributor for the feedback side. Or you can, be brave and like bring something you're working on and just share and just see how profoundly it impacts your process to kind of have that space. The circle is often very small, so it's like it feels like a really warm, safe space to practice visibility. So I highly encourage you to come and join that free circle. But if you're more keen to just jump in, I have a podcast exclusive code. So if you want to follow the link to the sign up page for the bubble, you can use the code back to school, back as in BACK, 2 as in the number 2, and then school SCHOOL. Is that how you spell school? Back to school. Okay, that's the code. And that code will get you 50% off your first month. So it's a super good deal. And you can cancel your membership anytime. So if it's not for you, obviously you don't have to stay. But yeah, come and check it out. And I will see you in there. And let's get back into the episode. Okay, so now that you have done the review portion of the journaling and you've had some space to reflect, collect the gems of the season and kind of process and digest this period of time, we're going to do something symbolic to release this season. So it can be really tiny, a really tiny action, or it can be a larger ritual if you prefer. But I want you to just think of one way that you could release and honor this season that has passed and just kind of symbolically, physically mark the end of a season and the transition into a new season. So some examples of how you could do that. You might just light a candle and say out loud like a little statement or a prayer that releases the summer and embraces the next season. You could put on a song and dance. You could have a shake and imagine you're shaking off all the energy from that season. You could go for a walk in nature, connect with the earth, like really notice the changing of the energy as the seasons transition and really absorb some of that earthy goodness. Notice the turning of the leaves. What else? You could do a workout. You could write some things that you want to release from that season on a piece of paper and burn the piece of paper. Any kind of releasing action or ritual that feels good to you. Another nice one is just like clean your space, like have a little spring clean, autumn clean, which that was kind of on the other list as well. So I will leave that up to you for whatever you want to do for that symbolic act. And then the final part of this mini transition ritual is we're going to do some planning and some manifesting and some looking ahead. So the first part of this journaling, I want you to take your journal and or you can just take a blank piece of paper, but just get a whole page. And first of all, you're just going to spend some time just like almost like doodling and free writing out and filling a page with just ideas, any ideas, symbols, intuitions that you have about this next season. So really let yourself like sink into a more playful, more kind of subconscious flowy state where you're just writing down anything that comes to you. It doesn't have to be realistic. It might be very symbolic. Like, for example, you might just have like the energy of a specific animal coming to you. Maybe you just have this really strong desire to dance more. Maybe you're thinking about, changing your job or shifting something in your business. But like whatever it is, just go into like a flowy, like blue sky thinking kind of place and just fill a page with desires, intentions, visions, anything that you can download for this next season. And you can just pause the podcast here and do that journaling. So once you have your full page, then press play again. Okay, once you have a full page of dreams, ideas, visions for the autumn season ahead, we're going to get a little bit more streamlined and specific. So we're going to set some intentions and then we're going to set some goals. For me, the difference between an intention and a goal is that an intention is something that's kind of like an energy that we want to evoke, or it's like something a little bit more vague than a goal. Like a really nice intention is I want to simplify all my systems. That's one of mine for autumn. I'm craving this feeling of like simplicity. So that's like a really great intention. Then a really clear goal is something that's actually measurable, something that you can actually like work towards and tick off if you achieve it. So my suggestion is that you set 3 intentions and 3 goals, because 3 is a magic number and sometimes more than 3 can just feel a little overwhelming. I don't know about you. And then the beautiful thing is that if you achieve all of your 3 goals like before the end of the season, you can just set more. But rather set yourself less goals and achieve them than set loads and feel like overwhelmed by them or feel bad when you don't achieve them all. For me, like setting goals for autumn was just kind of carrying over some goals from the late summer that I'd already set, but it just feels good to kind of re-establish them as my autumn goals. So take as long as you want to really think about what you want to prioritize, what energies you want to call in, what you want to cultivate for this season. And you might even want to let it sit like for 24 hours or something and just see what really crystallizes as the most important, most alive thing for this season. And once you have those intentions and goals, a nice thing to do is write them out on a post-it note and stick it up on your mirror, or near your desk, like somewhere you're going to see every day, maybe on your fridge. There is something about having them up in your line of vision which is just really satisfying and really powerful. So that is the end of our ritual for today. That is the end of our life reset. Hopefully you are feeling the reset. You're feeling ready to move into this next season with fresh energy. And I really hope it was grounding and fun. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really love to hear from you. I always love receiving messages saying that people have listened to the podcast. And I especially appreciate when you share it on your stories, or even leave a public review, because it just really helps boost the podcast and get it out to more people. And if you're interested in joining the bubble, I will leave the link for that in the description. You can get 50% off your first month using the code pt.2. And so that code will be live for the rest of September. I highly recommend that you grab the deal and come and try the bubble and see. It will change your life. So yeah, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.